The distress beacon pulsed through the void, its rhythmic plea cutting across 17 light-years of empty space before reaching humanity's furthest outpost. Commander Alawan Vastrox stood on the observation deck of Sentinel Station Omega, her silver eyes narrowed as the translated message scrolled across her neural interface. "Play it again," she ordered, her voice carrying the weight of 23 years in the United Terran Space Command. The AI complied. "To any sentient species capable of interstellar travel, our vessel, the Mercadian Hope, has suffered catastrophic drive failure. Life support systems failing. 38 souls aboard. Coordinates attached. Please help us." Vastrox's second-in-command, Lieutenant Raz Corvin, moved beside her. His augmented pupils contracted as he studied the data stream. "It's from the Scutum Centaurus arm. No known civilizations there," he said, running a hand through his copper-tinted hair. "And it's perfect." Perfect? The distress call. Universal mathematical constants, clean linguistic markers that match translation protocols too precisely. Corvin's expression darkened. "It's designed to be understood by anyone." Vastrox felt that familiar tightness in her chest, the one that had kept her alive through the Proxima Rebellion. Like bait in a trap. Their conversation was interrupted as Fleet Admiral Delath's hologram materialized in the center of the deck. His weathered face bore the scars of the First Contact War that had nearly decimated Earth 2 decades prior. "Commander Vastrox, you've received the transmission?" "Yes, Admiral. We're analyzing it now." "Something feels wrong." Delath's expression remained stone. "The Security Council concurs, but we can't ignore it. If there are genuinely survivors out there." "And if it's a trap," Corvin interjected, "then we spring it on our terms." Delath's hologram expanded, revealing tactical displays. "We're dispatching the UTSC Thunderhead under your command, Vastrox. Response fleet, not rescue. 50 ships, full combat readiness." Vastrox felt her pulse quicken. The Thunderhead was humanity's newest dreadnought, untested in actual combat. A show of force rather than charity. Exactly. First Contact taught us mercy can be fatal. Delath's eyes carried the haunted look of someone who had watched cities burn. The transmission came from the edge of the Perseus void. Dark matter concentration makes it a perfect ambush point. "When do we leave?" "Immediate departure. The Council has already decided." Delath's image flickered. "Commander, if this is hostile, you are authorized to engage with extreme prejudice. No hesitation this time." Within 6 hours, Vastrox stood on the command bridge of the Thunderhead, watching as 50 warships formed up around her. The vessel hummed with contained power, humanity's technological response to nearly being wiped out 20 years ago. "All ships report ready, Commander," announced Tactical Officer Lyra Mendax, her fingers dancing across holographic interfaces. "Jump drives synchronized." Vastrox took a deep breath, remembering the memorial wall back on Earth. 3 billion names etched in obsidian. Names of those who had trusted the first aliens to reach out in friendship. "Send fleet wide," she ordered. "This is Commander Vastrox. We answer this call as humanity always has, with open hands. But behind our backs, we carry thunder. Jump on my mark." 50 ships tore holes in space-time, hurtling toward coordinates that might hold desperate survivors or something far more sinister. Either way, this time, humanity wasn't coming unprepared. As the stars streaked past the viewports, Vastrox couldn't shake the feeling that whatever waited for them would change everything. Again. The UTSC Thunderhead emerged from hyperspace in formation with its battle group, momentum dampeners screaming as reality reasserted itself. Commander Vastrox steadied herself against the command chair, blinking away the quantum disorientation. "Status report," she demanded, as tactical displays flickered to life around her. "All 50 ships accounted for, Commander," replied Navigator, Oren Talasia, his pale blue skin glistening under the bridge lights. A genetically engineered deep space human variant, Talasia's ancestors had been among the first colonists of Europa. We've arrived at the coordinates precisely. Lyra Mendax's voice cut through the bridge chatter. Scans detecting a vessel! Bearing 035, approximately 700,000 kilometers distant. The main view screen shifted, magnifying a distant object. It was undeniably alien, a massive structure of interlocking obsidian rings surrounding a pulsating crimson core. No visible propulsion systems, no weapons arrays that their systems could identify. Just an elegant, impossible geometric construction that seemed to absorb surrounding starlight. That's not a damaged ship, Corvin muttered. Life signs? Vastrox asked, her hand instinctively moving to the neural stunner at her hip. Science. Officer Pax Numitor leaned forward at his station, brow furrowed. Inconclusive. The hull material is blocking our bioscanners, but there's definitely energy, massive amounts, fluctuating in patterns too regular to be natural. Vastrox opened a secure channel to Admiral Delath. Sir, we've made contact with the vessel. It matches no known configuration, definitely not damaged as claimed in the distress call. Delath's response was immediate. Maintain distance. Attempt communication, but keep the fleet at combat readiness. Understood. Before Vastrox could issue orders, Mendax shouted, Energy spike! The vessel is activating something! The alien ship's rings began rotating in opposite directions, the crimson core pulsating faster. A beam of coherent energy, neither weapon nor communication by any human standard, shot from the center, creating what appeared to be a spatial distortion. Defensive positions! Vastrox commanded. All ships, prepare to... She never finished. From the distortion emerged dozens, then hundreds of smaller craft, sleek predatory vessels reminiscent of Earth's extinct manta rays. They moved with impossible speed and precision. Multiple contacts. They're deploying in attack formation. Mendax's voice rose with urgency. Vastrox didn't hesitate. All ships, engage defensive protocols. Weapons hot. This is not a drill. The first salvo from the alien armada wasn't directed at the human fleet, but instead at nearby space. Beams of scintillating energy tore into the vacuum, creating more spatial ruptures. From each new tear emerged additional craft. They're creating some kind of gateway, Numitor explained, his voice tinged with both terror and scientific awe. They're bringing in reinforcements from elsewhere. Tactical displays showed human vessels now outnumbered nearly 10-1, with more alien ships arriving each moment. Then finally, a transmission. The bridge screens flickered, revealing a being that defied human comprehension. A shifting mass of crystalline structures and flowing mercury-like substance where a face might be expected. When it spoke, the translation came through in perfect, unnervingly calm standard English. Humanity, you have responded as predicted. Your species' tendency toward armed intervention, rather than cautious observation, has been confirmed. The experiment proceeds to Phase 2. The transmission cut. Moments later, the first alien weapon struck the UTSC Harbinger, the smallest vessel. In the human fleet! It didn't explode or disintegrate, it simply ceased to exist. What the hell was that? Corvin demanded. Numitor's voice shook. Matter conversion weapon. It didn't destroy the Harbinger. It transformed it into something else, something our sensors can't even detect. Vastrox's jaw set hard. All ships, evasive pattern Delta 9, return fire with everything we've got. As humanity's weapons blazed to life against this unexpected threat, Vastrox couldn't shake the alien's words. Experiment, predicted response. This wasn't just an ambush. It was a test. The void erupted with human fury, kinetic rounds, plasma lances, and quantum disruptors. The full technological might of a species that had clawed its way back from near extinction, streaked toward the alien armada. Yet for every enemy vessel destroyed, 3 more emerged from the spatial tears. "They're still coming!" Corvin shouted over the blaring alarms as the Thunderhead shuddered under enemy fire. Vastrox gripped her command chair. "Focus all fire on that main vessel, the one creating the gateways." The human fleet reoriented, concentrating devastating firepower on the massive ring structure. Their weapons impacted with spectacular force, creating ripples of energy across the alien vessel's surface, but no apparent damage. "No effect," Mendax reported grimly. "Their defensive capabilities are beyond anything we've encountered." 3. More human ships vanished under the alien matter conversion beams, their crews and structures transformed into something beyond detection. Not dead, perhaps, but removed from this plane of existence. Numitor's voice broke through the chaos. "Commander, I've been analyzing their attack patterns. They're not trying to annihilate us." "What?" Vastrox turned. "Look at the tactical display," Numitor insisted. "They could have overwhelmed us immediately. Instead, they're systematically testing different weapon configurations, adjusting after each volley. They're studying us." The realization struck Vastrox like a physical blow. "They lured us here to observe our combat capabilities. A new transmission cut across all channels, the crystalline entity reappearing. Your resistance exceeds parameters established from previous species encounters. Most satisfactory. Phase 3 initiated. The alien vessels abruptly changed tactics, their formations shifting into a massive three-dimensional grid surrounding the human fleet. The remaining 41 human ships found themselves trapped within a perfect geometric cage of enemy vessels. "They've boxed us in," Corvin said. "Classic containment pattern." Vastrox opened a secure channel to the fleet. "All ships, prepare for synchronized jump on my mark." "Impossible, Commander," Talasia interjected. "They're generating some kind of quantum interference field. Our jump drives can't establish fixed coordinates." Trapped. Outgunned. With conventional tactics failing, Vastrox made the call she'd hoped to avoid. "Deploy the Thanatos Protocol." The bridge fell silent. The Thanatos Protocol was humanity's last resort. An experimental weapon developed from recovered alien technology after the First Contact War, untested in actual combat. Potentially more dangerous to its users than the enemy. "Uploading Thanatos to all fleet vessels," Mendax confirmed quietly. As the protocol transferred, Vastrox addressed her fleet. "This is Commander Vastrox. We came here expecting to find survivors. Instead, we found predators using the oldest trick in existence, the cry for help. They expect us to surrender or die. They expect us to follow the pattern of other species they've tested." She paused, watching as the alien vessels tightened their formation around the human fleet. "But humanity doesn't follow patterns. We break them." Thanatos Protocol activating in 30 seconds. "All ships, prepare for immediate radiation surge and stay with your wingman." The alien entity transmitted once more, its crystalline features seemingly arranged in what might have been curiosity. "Your continued resistance is anomalous. Submit to examination, and your consciousness structures will be preserved in our archives." Vastrox's reply was simple. "Humanity doesn't submit. Humanity answers." The Thanatos Protocol activated simultaneously across all human vessels. What happened next defied the laws of physics, as understood by either species. Each human ship became the center of a temporal distortion, phasing partially out of normal space-time. The alien matter conversion beams passed harmlessly through them as the human fleet executed maneuvers that should have been impossible, moving through solid objects, appearing in multiple locations simultaneously. For the first time, the alien formation faltered. Vastrox leaned forward. "Now, all ships, attack pattern Hydra's revenge!" The human fleet struck back with devastating efficiency, their weapons finding purchase where before they'd been ineffective. The temporal distortions allowed them to bypass the aliens' defenses, striking directly at vulnerable systems. As the battle turned, Vastrox kept her eyes on the massive ring structure. Whatever these beings were, whatever experiment they were conducting, she intended to send them a message that would echo across the galaxy. Humanity was done being tested. The Thanatos Protocol was never meant to be sustainable. The human fleet existed in a half-state of reality, their temporal signatures fluctuating between normal space-time and something else entirely, a realm where conventional physics surrendered to quantum uncertainty. "Protocol destabilizing," Mendax reported, sweat beading on her forehead as the Thunderhead system strained under the impossible load. "We have maybe 10 minutes before temporal coherence fails completely." Vastrox nodded grimly. "Then we make, those minutes count. All ships converge on the primary vessel. Everything we have, concentrated fire. The human fleet, ghostly, flickering, partially phased out of reality, converged on the massive ring structure. The alien armada scrambled to intercept them. But their precision had faltered, their perfect geometric formations dissolving into chaos. "They're disorganized," Corvin observed. "They didn't expect this response." "No," Vastrox agreed. "They expected us to follow rules, their rules, to be predictable prey." The Thunderhead shuddered violently as it took a direct hit, the alien beam partially connecting despite their phased state. A quarter of the lower decks simply vanished, transformed into something beyond detection. 900 crew members lost, Corvin reported, horror evident in his voice. Vastrox swallowed hard but kept her eyes forward. "Continue the approach. All remaining ships, focus fire on these coordinates." She marked a section of the alien vessel where the rings connected to the crimson core. As they closed distance, the alien entity transmitted once more, its crystalline features now arranged in what human psychology might interpret as agitation. "This response violates established patterns. Your technological adaptation exceeds predictive models. Submit to examination so that your anomalous nature may be preserved." Vastrox ignored the transmission. 5 minutes to temporal collapse. Prepare the Nova charges." Nova charges. Antimatter weapons powerful enough to create miniature stellar explosions. Weapons of absolute last resort. The human fleet, now reduced to 32 ships, broke through the disorganized alien defense screen and achieved optimal firing position around the ring structure. For the first time in the battle, Vastrox allowed herself a moment of grim satisfaction. "Deploy Nova charges. All ships prepare for emergency jump the moment temporal coherence restabilizes." 28 Nova charges detached from human vessels, their propulsion systems guiding them toward precise points on the alien structure. The charges themselves flickered with the same temporal distortion effect, making them impossible for the aliens to target. The entity transmitted one final time, its perfect English now fragmented and distorted. Incomprehensible response. Specimen. Value exceeds. Preservation priority alpha. Withdrawing to analyze. The massive ring structure began to pulse erratically, the crimson core flaring with blinding intensity. The spatial tears it had generated started collapsing, cutting off the alien reinforcements. "They're trying to retreat!" Numitor exclaimed. "Too late," Vastrox said quietly. The Nova charges detonated in perfect synchronization. 28 points of blinding light erupted across the alien vessel, each explosion creating a localized space-time rupture that tore through the seemingly impervious material. The ring structure fractured, its elegant geometry collapsing as chain reactions propagated through its systems. At that precise moment, the Thanatos Protocol finally failed. Human ships snapped back into normal space-time, systems overloading, hulls groaning under the stress of dimensional reintegration. "Jump drives back online," Talasia shouted. "Emergency coordinates locked. Get us out of here," Vastrox ordered. The surviving human vessels initiated emergency jumps just as the alien mothership's crimson core went critical. The resulting explosion wasn't just physical, It tore a hole in reality itself, a wound in the fabric of space-time that swallowed the remaining alien vessels. The UTSC Thunderhead emerged from hyperspace at the rally point, severely damaged but intact. Of the original 50 ships, only 29 had survived to make the jump. The cost had been devastating, yet as Vastrox surveyed the battered bridge of her flagship, she knew they had accomplished something unprecedented. Humanity had not simply survived the trap, they had destroyed its makers. "Transmit to Earth," she instructed a communications officer. "Tell them we've answered the SOS, with extreme prejudice." As the message was sent, Vastrox couldn't help but wonder, had they just defended themselves, or had they unknowingly fired the first shot in a much larger war? 3 months after what was now being called the Perseus engagement, Commander Elowen, Vastrox stood before the United Terran Security Council in the subterranean chambers beneath New Geneva. Her dress uniform felt tight around the neck, the medals recently pinned to her chest heavier than they should have been. "Your report states that you believe these entities were testing us," said Counselor Isvan Merida, his augmented eyes glowing faintly in the dim light. "Can you elaborate?" Vastrox nodded, activating the holographic display. The alien entity's crystalline features materialized above the council table, causing several members to shift uncomfortably. "The evidence suggests this species, which we're now designating as architects, has been conducting similar operations throughout our galactic arm. Science Officer Numitor's analysis of their communication patterns indicates they've encountered and tested at least 7 other spacefaring civilizations." "Tested for what purpose?" another counselor asked. "Collection," Vastrox replied grimly. "Their transmissions referenced preservation and archives. We believe they catalog species, their technology, their responses to threats, their biological makeup, before—" She paused. "Before removing them from existence using their matter. Conversion technology." The council chamber fell silent. Admiral Delath, seated at the end of the table, finally spoke. "And you're certain we destroyed their vessel completely? There's no possibility of survivors?" "The Nova charges created a localized space-time rupture that appears to have consumed the entire structure," Vastrox confirmed. "However, given their technological capabilities, we cannot rule out the possibility that this was merely one of many such vessels." Counselor Merida leaned forward. "So we may have just declared war on an advanced species that collects other civilizations like specimens, in a laboratory?" "With respect, Counselor," Vastrox countered, "they declared war the moment they lured us with a false distress signal. Humanity responded accordingly." A new voice joined the conversation. Diplomat Kari Niven, representative of the outer colonies. "Perhaps we should consider attempting communication before further hostilities. If these architects are advanced enough to traverse dimensions—" "We tried communication," Vastrox interrupted. "They responded by transforming 900 of my crew into something our sensors couldn't even detect. These aren't misunderstood explorers, Diplomat. They're collectors who see us as specimens to be preserved in some cosmic museum." Admiral Delath raised a hand for silence. "The question before us is not whether we were justified in our response, but what we do next. Intelligence suggests this encounter was likely an isolated scouting operation. But if the architects are as advanced as we believe, and if they operate throughout the galaxy, then we just kicked a nest of dimension-shifting hornets." Corvin, now promoted to commander himself, finished from his position beside Vastrox. The council descended into heated debate. Some advocated immediate military buildup, others suggested withdrawing to core systems and establishing defensive perimeters. A few even proposed attempting to locate the architect's home civilization to negotiate, or to strike first. Through it all, Vastrox remained silent, her mind returning to the moment when the alien entity had expressed surprise at humanity's resistance. "Your response exceeds parameters established from previous species encounters." When the council finally turned to her for military recommendations, her answer was simple but resolute. We prepare, but we don't retreat. We expand our Sentinel network, we accelerate the Thanatos research, and we adapt our tactics based on what we've learned. She paused, making eye contact with each council member. The architects selected humanity because they expected predictable behavior. Our unpredictability was our greatest weapon. Later, as Vastrox stood on the observation deck of Earth Orbital Command, watching transport ships carrying new defensive satellites toward the outer colonies, Numitor joined her. "They're calling it the silent interval," he said quietly. "What?" "The period we're in now. The military analysts, the xenopsychologists, they're all saying the same thing. The architects won't just disappear after a defeat like Perseus. They're studying us, adapting. When they return, it will be with knowledge of our capabilities." Vastrox nodded slowly, watching as Earth rotated beneath them. The cradle of a species that had nearly been extinguished once before, now preparing for a threat beyond conventional understanding. "Then we'll give them something new to study," she said. "Something they haven't cataloged yet." "What's that?" "How humanity fights when we know what's coming." As if in answer to her words, a priority alert flashed across her neural interface. Reports from 17 different outposts across human space, all transmitting the same message. Unknown energy signatures detected, identical to those preceding the Perseus engagement. The silent interval had ended. The real war was about to begin. The UTSC Thunderhead, rebuilt, enhanced, and now the flagship of humanity's largest battle fleet, dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Cygnus Arm. 87 warships followed in perfect formation, their hulls gleaming with the distinctive sheen of new metamaterial armor reverse-engineered from recovered architect technology. Fleet Admiral Vastrox, promoted after the events of the Perseus engagement, stood at the center of the Thunderheads. Expanded command bridge, surrounded by holographic displays showing the approaching architect armada. 134 vessels, reported Strategic Officer Mendax, now wearing the insignia of a full commander. 3 primary ring structures, significantly larger force than at Perseus. Vastrox nodded calmly. As expected. They're adapting, their approach based on previous encounter data. The past 6 months had transformed humanity's military capabilities. The recovered fragments of architect technology had yielded breakthroughs in quantum physics, dimensional manipulation, and matter conversion theory. But more importantly, humanity had prepared psychologically for this moment, the inevitable. Return of a species that collected civilizations like insects in a display case. "All ships reporting ready, Admiral," announced Corvin from his position as fleet coordinator. "Thanatos Protocol 2.0 integrated across all vessels. Nova payload. Delivery systems primed." Vastrox opened a fleet-wide channel. "This is Admiral Vastrox to all ships. For 6 months, we've prepared for this moment. The architects have returned, expecting to find a species cowering behind defensive lines, easy prey for their collection efforts." She paused, watching as the architect vessels arranged themselves into a complex 3-dimensional formation, similar to Perseus but with subtle variations designed to counter the tactics humanity had previously employed. Instead, they find us here, at the threshold of their incursion route, waiting. Today, we answer their question about humanity's nature with absolute clarity. Across the fleet, crews stood at ready positions. The previous encounter had taught humanity a crucial lesson. The architects could be hurt, could be surprised, could be defeated, if you rejected the parameters they established for engagement. "Begin Phase 1, Vastrox ordered. Throughout human space, thousands of Sentinel platforms activated simultaneously. Not defensive systems as the architects might have anticipated, but quantum beacons broadcasting on frequencies discovered in the wreckage of the Perseus vessel. The signals created a complex interference pattern that rippled across subspace, disrupting the dimensional gateways the architects had begun forming. The effect was immediate. The spatial tears the architects were generating to bring in reinforcements fluctuated and collapsed. The crystalline entity appeared on communication channels across the human fleet, its features arranged in what xenopsychologists now interpreted as alarm. This intervention violates predicted behavioral patterns. Your species continues to demonstrate anomalous adaptability. We're just getting started, Vastrox replied. Phase 2. The human fleet initiated the improved Thanatos Protocol. Unlike at Perseus, where the effect had been unstable and temporary, the new version created controlled, sustainable temporal distortions. Human ships began to phase between dimensions with precision, their movements becoming impossible to predict or counter. But the architects had adapted too. Their weapons fired not at where human ships were, but across multiple potential positions simultaneously, catching several vessels as they phased back into normal space. 3 human cruisers disappeared in flashes of matter conversion energy. They've anticipated the Thanatos effect, Corvin warned. Expected. Vastrox replied calmly. Proceed to Phase 3. At her command, 24 vessels at the rear of the human formation suddenly activated specialized equipment, not weapons but transmitters, broadcasting the exact frequency and pattern of the original false distress call that had lured humanity to Perseus. The effect on the architect vessels was immediate and dramatic. Their perfect formations faltered, as conflicting signals disrupted their coordination. The ring structures began rotating erratically, their crimson cores pulsating with uneven patterns. What's happening? Corvin asked, staring at the tactical display in confusion. Numitor, now chief science officer for the entire fleet, smiled grimly. They communicate using the same quantum principles they use for their weapons. We're speaking their language now, just not saying anything they want to hear. The human fleet pressed the advantage, launching specialized missiles not at the architect vessels, but into apparently empty space between them. The missiles detonated, creating localized fields of quantum disruption that further interfered with the architects' communication and coordination. For the first time in the engagement, the architects began to retreat, their vessels regrouping around the primary ring structures in defensive formations. The crystalline entity transmitted. Again, its perfect English now fragmented. Cease hostilities, specimen value reassessed, preservation protocols, negotiation possible. They're offering to talk, Mendak said, turning to Vastrox. Should we respond? Vastrox's expression remained resolute. Humanity already gave our answer at Perseus. They chose to ignore it. She opened a fleet-wide channel. All ships, execute final phase. Across the human fleet, specialized emitters activated, creating a complex web of quantum entanglement that linked all 84 remaining vessels. What happened next defied conventional physics. The entire fleet began to operate as a single unified entity, their movements perfectly synchronized across multiple dimensions. The architect's defensive formations, designed to counter individual vessels, proved useless against this unprecedented level of coordination. Human ships phased through their lines, delivering precise strikes against critical systems before disappearing again. The largest ring structure began to destabilize, its elegant geometry collapsing as targeted attacks disrupted its dimensional anchors. The crystalline entity made one final transmission, its message reduced to a single concept: incomprehensible. Vastrox's reply was equally concise. That's the point, she gave the final order. Nova charges, enhanced with architect technology, deployed across all 3 ring structures simultaneously. The detonations created cascading dimensional rifts that consumed the architect vessels from within, collapsing the very space-time they manipulated. As the last architect vessel disappeared into the quantum maelstrom, Vastrox opened a channel to Earth. Cygnus engagement complete. Architect threat neutralized. Request permission to proceed to the next incursion point. The response from Earth came from Admiral Delath himself. Permission granted, Admiral Vastrox. The Rigel fleet reports similar success. Humanity stands. Vastrox turned to her bridge crew, noting the mixture of exhaustion and triumph on their faces. Set course for the Vega defensive line. The architects thought they found specimens to study. Instead, they found humanity. As the fleet regrouped and prepared for the next engagement, long-range sensors detected something unexpected: quantum signatures from dozens of worlds across the galaxy, civilizations previously thought dead or dormant beginning to emit communication. Signals again. Other species, Numitor breathed in astonishment. They're coming back. The architect's collection is falling apart without them to maintain it. Vastrox nodded slowly, understanding the full implications. Humanity hadn't just defended itself. It had unknowingly fought for every species that had fallen to the architect's preservation. "Send a message to those worlds," she ordered, "in every language and format we can manage." "What message, Admiral?" Mendax asked. Vastrox looked out at the stars, a galaxy where predators had hunted unchallenged until they encountered a species that refused to be collected, cataloged, or controlled. "Tell them humanity answered the call.